kata. No, don't say else. Just bring 5,000 now.
Only.
Make
the kata day. Make the code remain.
Yeah, they worry.
You are not aware you're a thief. Now that you know that your money is coming from a thief, do you not see why you're a thief?
All right, still talking about affairs of the federal government. We understand also that the federal government...
Welcome to today's edition of Beats and Pieces in your premium talk and news with...
And it's going to be 1-1 Morata. 1-0 is never good enough.
That's why we're called the voice of the people. Today, 95.1 FM, Port Act.
Here we go.
.1 FM, voice of the people.
And we're back.
Opinion poll on today's quest.
More than 3 over 4 of the loots we're talking about in this country today were loots within the 16 years.
Here is a great opportunity to sample all our opinions on the issues raised.
And in Port Harcourt says the PDP is trying to divert our attention because Nigerian funds was looted by the PDP. Melody in Uniport says Madam Jonah is yet to come in terms of the fact that her tenure has expired. Annie, please tell him that investigation is not what you make public until the final stage.
Send your opinion to us on Facebook,
www.facebook.com/Today95.1 FM.
or on Twitter @TodayFM951. You can also sample your opinions with us on WhatsApp or on our SMS portal using the numbers 070-1933-9962. It's 22 minutes after 10 and you're listening to Today 95.1 FM. The 9th National Assembly inauguration is ongoing. We're actually watching it live here in the studio and we'll be keeping tab with what's going on there and we'll hopefully keep you abreast. PDP is endorsing Ndume embargo for national leadership. We did say that earlier, while APC is still going for Lawan and Bajabiamila. But in any which ways, we'll see how that pans out. We're looking at the 9th Assembly for the next conversation here on Opinion Poll and the burden of the 9th Assembly. One of the areas that Mogalu touched when he spoke about the northern leaders being the problem of the North and why the North has continually remained the poverty capital of the nation was because he said of the system that we operated, the kind of federalism we had enshrined. And he says that if we could restructure along regional lines, that we will have that platform to develop in a form where we compete against each other, and that will put us on a pedestal to up our games. And he says he genuinely believes that will give unprecedented opportunity for the North to pull itself out of the doldrums. This word itself, restructuring, has been key in so many areas. We find out that even when it comes to security, the word restructure comes in, and where the government is urged to do something concerning the security architecture and how we cannot continue to have security based in the center, and that we've got crippling issues that must be dealt with locally with local security architecture. And even at the discussions, when it comes to the high point of those discussions, you find out that it falls back on the National Assembly and the legislations they do concerning that, either to take away the security architecture from the executive. I think it's based in it's exclusive legislative bill, and take it away from there so that they can have the ability to deal with it in a manner where states perhaps can now be the ones in charge of their own security. Then there might be an overall central security structure. Until that is done, we're still going to continually have these conversations back and forth. And if I remember, I think somebody in that message with Mogalu said, the funny thing with the North is that anytime they do have conversations like this, everybody comes and reels what is wrong, what we did wrong, and blame one another. But then the real solutions to the problem somehow is what evades them. And I think that, it's the same thing too when we're looking at the National Assembly. The National Assembly usually over the years will come and give, great speeches about what's wrong with Nigeria. But when it comes to now preferring the laws or the policies that will fix that problem, we always have it's either they're not dealing with that one and they're dealing with the peripheries and never with the real issues, or for the real issues, they never provide real solutions. I know we spoke about hope of the Ninth Assembly and what you think about it. Emmanuel, you said there's nothing too impressive about the Ninth Assembly for you. Let me have your thoughts here, though.
Well, I think it is just a formality for after inauguration and all that. You have them. Their own inauguration will come. And so the burden on them is the normal mantra. Nothing has changed. They will also be told, they have, of course, perhaps if they have handbooks, they'll go through all functions for them are written and itemized in that particular handbook. All of them will go through that, and they know everything. The same way others have been reading since 1999. 20 years after, I don't think anything is going to change. I don't think, because you see, what I find out that Nigeria's National Assembly is doing is that they are on the platform of various political parties. As much as I have won seats, they'll gather there. But their major interest is themselves. Forget about the different names of parties. They belong to one particular political party that may be, for now, unnamed. But they know they have it in their heart. That's what they believe in. Take the case of anything at all that happens to any member. They will rush with the speed of light to amend whatever rules to accommodate them. That interest. But things that are very much essential for the federation, the people that have elected them into that particular those chambers, they will not use that same speed of light. Rather, the speed will be that of a snail. If ever, snail will always reach its destination.
Eventually.
But their own, I don't think they even want to reach there. And that is why, we didn't see that spectacularity during the exit of this Saraki-led assembly, that they came up with many bills at the dying wee hours of
the assembly.
Good. So what I think now is that if these people, why I am still like a man, at least a human, being optimistic, is that change is supposed to be permanent. And who says, and that will also depend on who will emerge finally. If it is somebody that will emerge, will completely be that what people call in our local parlance, yes member to the executive, nothing will change. Because I think the National Assembly, when you talk about democracy, even though I believe we don't have it, but at least the semblance of it we are practicing, what people should be expecting is do the legislative action, take it, independent of the executive, but cooperate, because there must be collective responsibility. Cooperate with other organs of government. But on your own, you are the democracy we are talking about. Because you remember that these people have so much power that they can even impeach the president. But the president cannot impeach them.
Yes.
So they are the sign, the insignia of democracy. But what we see in our own is they are the insignia of their own collective interest. And so if anything will change, nobody will say with certainty now. But they are coming in. Yes, the burden of National Assembly still rests on this new one. After all, many of them, you cannot forget that phrase they use, ranking senators and all that, and maybe ranking honorable members. They are there. They will influence, even if they like, let them imagine like the Speaker of Just Assembly. Somebody that is the first timer, imagine. The old
timers.
They will monitor them and tell them what to do. And so I'm not seeing a bright future from them. But like I said, we have to be optimistic. Change may apply here.
All right, then. Okay, we got your thoughts on that. What did you mean?
Well, I think the burden of the 9th National Assembly has been a discussion that most of us would have loved to remain silent, because what we see in the National Assembly, both the 9th, 8th, is more or less we saw effigies, with due respect, and we've not been seeing actions. The essence of the Assembly is to ensure that laws, relevant laws, bills are being proposed and passed to the betterment of the society or the nation at large. This is where the seat of laws rests upon. But over the years, we've discovered that the voyage to the National Assembly by most of these members, so-called members, have been to their own personal interest. I think with the words of Mahalo, one would say that if we restructure along the regional lines, it will assist. We have had a lot of presentations, observations, a lot of observations to make forward, to ensure that Nigeria gets forward and gets on top of the Committee of Nations. But over the years, the lawmaking body has frustrated, the executive power has frustrated most of these attempts. I think so far what we are seeing is manifestos that are not realizable. We have seen a lot of promises. Most bills are yet to be passed. Most bills are still in the archives of the deliberations. And sometimes these bills are being sponsored by personal interest. So if all these things will be set aside by the supposed assembly, I think Nigerians will not only be yearning for change, we will be happy. But over the years, we have seen that most of the bills are personal bills. We have seen that there have been a lot of attempts by some cabals within the assembly who felt that if laws or bills are passed to the betterment of the people, it will affect them. Then I begin to look at the framers of the rules of the assembly. And these are rules that are objective. These are rules that can be realizable. These are rules, the rules of the House, that permit each of the members to propose a bill to the betterment of the people. But over the years, we have seen that most of these bills are being sponsored by the bourgeois who have personal interest. So if we begin to x-ray the 9th Assembly, one will not even rest in his ears, because so far there is nothing to count out. It's like, saying, can anything come out of Nazareth? Of course, something came out, but the 9th Assembly is a negative Nazareth. So I think we must begin to restructure the assembly. Restructuring should start from the assembly. In the words of Montesquieu, who said that, yes, there should be, the executive should not be the legislature, but that they should be well separated. So far, we have seen a mixed up, where the assembly is a stooge to the executive. Some of them, over the years, have not been able to propose, not even to raise a motion. We have seen a lot of muteness, and all these things have prevailed. So if we can restructure the assembly in terms of, first of all, proposing a bill, we have seen a lot of hola bolo between the president and the assembly member. In the budgetary presentation, we have seen padding, we have seen personal interest, all these things. How do we reconcile it? Well, in the position of manual, if we can restructure along the line, regional line, I think this will emanate from the assembly. But the question that should come is that, do we have a viable assembly? What we have is a rubber stamp, as long as I'm concerned. Because so far, we don't see people sponsor bill. Even when you sponsor a bill, somebody dies, we have seen people being massacred in their numbers. We have seen pogroms in the north. Don't we have representatives in this area? We have them in the assembly. But they prefer moving with their Bugattis. They prefer moving with their Rolls Royce. If they get to the assembly, they will have to get their Abadan before they tie it up. Most of them don't care. Most of them don't even know if there is a rule in the house. Some of them are not acquainted with the rules of the house. So you begin to wonder. Look at the budgetary positions. The committee frustrated it for months before that bill. I think recently it has been assented. So you begin to look at the negative effect of not assenting to a bill, giving a quick response to a bill. It will affect the market woman. It will affect the economy. But these things are not being, it's not the fulcrum of the house. What the house is after is the money they share during sitting and after sitting, and the contract that will be allotted to them. So when you look at them, you see them with their big pockets. They move vigorously. Some of them with, an army, fleet of armies. So all these things will have to be reconciled. And yet the nation is under threat, under security threat. Some of them are planning to get a battalion of soldiers who will guide them. So I think there has to be a memorial for the National Assembly. To me, it's a time of sober reflection. They say June 12th. I think it's a time for the National Assembly, the seat of law. Let them sit down and begin to beat their chest. Have we gotten it well?
Of democracy.
Yes, have we gotten it well? I think the Ninth Assembly has not bequeathed anything that is new. There is nothing they have bequeathed. Rather than, we have seen them siphoning money. We have seen them padding budget. We have seen them in the Eighth Assembly. We have seen them done a lot of things. So what the Ninth Assembly will do is an interest that have been bequeathed by the Eighth Assembly, which is what? Siphoning of money, and not even knowing the rules of the house. We discovered that recently some of the house members, even in the local government area, some of them can even propose a bill, not even to raise a motion. So I think that I will enjoin them to go back. If possible, hire somebody that will tutor them on how to move a motion. Then make a bill. Yeah, with due respect.
No, I think they do know how to do. I don't think it's moving
I'm telling you. We have watched them live. We have seen a lot of the elections. Now they have to know all these things and know that they are there for the people.
Because I think that is the most important.
Because during the election,
knowing what they're there for,
so many people were injured. There were a lot of casualty as a result of pointing at these people. Some of them have changed their line. You can't get them again. But the manifesto during election was that if you vote me, you will get the meaningful, what you requested of me. But as I speak to you, you can't even go to the assembly now. Now that they are doing the inauguration, you can't even go close to 10 meters, close to where they are now. So these are people we are supposed to be keeping proximity with. These are people that are supposed to be empathizing with the rural man. These are people that people fought for. These are people that ought to represent the entirety of the people. But as I speak to you, even when there is crisis in some areas, you don't see these people speak for the people. To say, look, you call the attention of the police. You raise it in the floor of the house. They don't know the procedure. So many of them do not know the procedure. It's not putting on suit. I was watching at what is happening in Sri Lanka. I saw motions, how they were moved. There's a way you move your motion. Somebody will not counter it at the deliberation stage. Each time they say the Northerners are bigger than us. That is not what we are saying. One witness in a matter is enough. You can call 30 witnesses. They may not be relevant. So the Ninth Assembly must begin to, inculcate the things that are relevant. They should jettison what the Eighth Assembly has done. There may be some goods, but so far we have seen a lot of frustrated activities. We have seen a lot of, quasi, proposition of bills. At the deliberation stage, it will be thrown into the trash. If you look at the bills that have been passed so far by the Eighth Assembly, you begin to watch at the impactation. What are the impactation to the rural man? What are the impactation of their bills to the urban man? So you begin to look at, are they significant? There is nothing significant about the Eighth Assembly. As I stand to be corrected. So we must begin to look at the Ninth Assembly must emulate. They must understand that Nigerians, the seat of the rules and norms rest upon them. And whatever happens to this country today as a result of constitutional failure will be rested to them. Of course, they will have the share of the blame. So each time they say the executive is, the rascality of the executive, I laugh at them because they are the third, whether we like it or not. If the assembly can stand and say, look, we must stand at the right, we must do the right thing, we must begin to pursue the norms and the regulation that is expected of us, I think Nigeria will have that kind of respect. They may have left with a footprint rather than what the Eighth Assembly has bequeathed to them. Because what I'm seeing is a miniature of what the Eighth Assembly has left. I'm not saying that the Eighth Assembly has not done anything good, but that if we are to look at the yardstick at which we should judge by the proprietiness of the Eighth Assembly, I think I will stand safely to say, And I can proudly beat my chest to say that they've not done anything right. Rather, the house was in shambles. Holabolus. Okay. No rules.
All right.
No laws.
Okay.
Everything was in shambles.
We got your
I think I will plead them. It's my passionate appeal
that
they should bequeath to Nigerians what we voted them in there for.
All right, we got your thoughts on that. Let me move on down to Enifia Haga. Enifia Haga, go ahead.
Yes, body of the 9th Assembly, right?
Yes, the body that they have now.
Yes. I think the body they have is not far-fetched as long as we are in a constitutional democracy where the law actually specifies and defines positions and rules. So the National Assembly are elected to represent the people from the constituency down to the senatorial district. It is believed that they are the voices of the local people. So if today they are there and they are being inaugurated, I think their body is rightly there in the constitution. I hope that they know this constitution and from there they can pick up from there. Because according to our law, that is section 4 of the 1999 constitution as amended, it defined the powers of the National Assembly, which states that the power to make law, number one, for peace of Nigeria. Currently, we are facing so many problems, insecurity everywhere and all that. If the law says it is the duty of the National Assembly, as it were, to make law for peace to reign in Nigeria, so they should start from there. Sit down and begin to think. Yes, we have herdsmen and farmer clashes. We have Boko Haram ravaging Nigeria. We have issue of militancy. We have issue of kidnapping and kidnappers and all that. We have issues of ritualists and all that, bedeviling this country. So as lawmakers who are saddled with this responsibility to make law for peace to reign in Nigeria, what do we do? So they are from communities. They know the problem that is causing this insecurity. So it is them now to put out these things and begin to deliberate on it and fashion of modalities to see how they can make law that will checkmate the character that is causing that insecurity and to ensure that peace reign. Then another thing that the law pointed out is say to make law for order in Nigeria. Order. So we are talking about order synonymously in English language, say to arrange, to systematize. I've heard so many arguments saying system does not work. We need system this, we need system that. Oh, Nigeria is not properly arranged, which is the restructuring they are talking about. So it is not the duty of the National Assembly to arrange Nigeria the way Nigeria will move forward. It is their duty to bring forth to the board these things they have been arguing. Some, hey, Nigeria, we need structural restructuring. We need this, just like the case that we just discussed, and the not that there is a prevailing poverty in the north. And one of them say the unnecessary obeisance that we talk about the other time. So if they begin to see that, okay, there is imbalance in the system, so it is their duty to set out the modality for us to follow. Not like the one Ekweremadu headed for over 7 and 8 years, that we didn't see anything that came out of it. So it is now their duty, the 9th Assembly, to have this constitutional amendment committee headed by somebody who is willing and has the Nigeria project at heart, who will not see Nigeria as an avenue to make quick cash, who will not see the National Assembly as an avenue to amass wealth to him or herself, but the one who will think that, yes, it is my responsibility and obligation to ensure that in Nigeria, we have proper system that will work. We have proper system that will actually meet the needs of the people. And this is their responsibility. This is their burden. It is them. It is not the executive. So the argument that executive has begun to, to force themselves for the National Assembly, unnecessary interference. Do you know sometimes Nigeria, we are not helping the system because we are making demand in the wrong place. When we should channel our demands and our requests, we will not channel it there, but we channel to the wrong place and we are expecting the wrong person to perform the right thing. And at the end of the day, we begin to shout, oh, no rule of law, no this. And we are the people encouraging that act. So it is also the duty of the Nigeria now to focus their attention to the National Assembly, who are duty bound to ensure that Nigeria is properly arranged. And the restructuring should start from there. And the restructuring I'm always argue for is not the structural restructuring. Because if you still have this set of people with this mindset driving the system, no matter the structure you bring, for example, we're talking about poverty in the north, and Mogalu link it to the leaders. You still have this leader driving this structure and order. They will still amass this way to themselves. I expect the people to come to pay unnecessary obeisance to them because they want to be the overlord. The same thing in the south, in the southeast, in the south, and the southwest. So we must start the restructuring from there. Nigeria should channel the demand to them now. Then another thing that the law also talk about, which is the Nigerian Constitution, that in that section for good government. If Nigeria is not properly governed as it stands, so it is the duty of the National Assembly to ensure that they bring these rules, they enact these rules that the executive will only implement. Because in the hierarchy of whatever in the law as we have today, the legislature are more powerful. They determine the course of the nation. The executive are just there to implement whatever law the legislature have made. But many persons, we don't look at this. We don't think that the executive will just formulate the law, begin to drive Nigeria. Nigeria will not move forward, except there are rules.
Any law that the executive is pushing on now, it has been laws that have been endorsed by legislators over the years.
Yes.
There's nothing that comes specially, except if you have this law, which one that we saw?
The executive
orders.
Executive order.
Executive order.
Yes, even the executive order have their roots on the 1999 Constitution. Now they campaign now as people are saying that Nigeria is not properly governed. So we need good government. That is the area I'm looking at. If we need good government, it means it is the duty of the National Assembly to change those laws that are obstacles to the good government. If for us to have good government. So it must be driven from there. And the law didn't limit the power of the National Assembly to exclusive legislative list. It also included a concurrent list. That means the matter that are affecting the states. So they can actually set the pace, set the course for the state governors to actually follow too. Because whatever thing that the state assembly will do, if it is inconsistent with the national law or the act and all that, the national law will prevail. So it is the duty of the National Assembly to set the pace. How the Abuja will be governed, how the various states will be governed. And if we can have this done properly, I believe Nigeria will be on the path of progress. So this yearnings, this complaint, Nigeria is bad government and all that, we stop. Because there will be something for the nation that will compel the executive to implement. If we want proper education, it is the duty of the National Assembly to set the law, to enact the law that will encourage the drive of this proper education. If we're talking about security, it is the National Assembly. If we're talking about the economy, we need to diversify. Yes, it's true. So the National Assembly can actually enact the laws that will compel even the executive to follow, because anything outside this will be declared unlawful. So it is the duty of the National Assembly to actually set the pace of the economy. Do we still need to continue the mono economy, the petroleum economy, or do we need to drive certain programs that will bring the wealth to the common Nigerians on the street? It is the National Assembly that can enact this law. So the executive at the various level, whether at the state or at the federal level, we have no choice than to implement these laws. So the National Assembly are duty bound to ensure that Nigeria is properly governed. And if they fail, just like the previous one where we have Maradona, people will assemble themselves, a serious business that will begin to say, today I want to thank the Lord, and they will begin to sing. The likes of Dino, that is still there. But I hope this Ninth Assembly will be able to gag him from all those characters. And the previous one, we always see that.
Please, we like the character.
No, sometimes
they should not gag him.
It makes us to.
There should be freedom.
That will also be unconstitutional.
There should be freedom.
You can't gag.
No, the leadership of the assembly. If you don't give room for this unnecessary, this act that are not right,
if it's out of order, if it's not.
Variety is the spice of interest.
See, I know one thing about National Assembly. Whatever thing that is going to be discussed is through the agenda. Anything that is not on the agenda is not allowed to be discussed. But the 8th Assembly, you can just come and do anything you want to do as long as you belong to the Saraki group. You can bring matters that are not on the agenda and you begin to do them. That was why Dino was having his way, singing. So we say, my Lord, my President, I want to sing, and all that. At the end, we turn the house to a playground. So the National Assembly actually have something important
All
to
right,
do
then.
for us.
I think what we just did is spotlighted, the depth of burden that these people really do have. I remember that during the elections when we're always excited about the executive, who's going to be governor, who is going to be president, who is vice, who is deputy governor. And that's where the interest of the people usually focuses on who the president is, who is the governor. And I said, what is most important that we keep forgetting is who your legislators are.
They are the
Your
they are the focal
representatives,
point.
that is your focal point. You should be more vested in getting the right people in the positions of legislators than you're interested in the executive. The executive can be anybody if you have your legislative team right.
Yes.
If you have your legislative team right, you can be sure that they'll checkmate whoever is in the executive to the point you will feel, because the truth is that they are your representatives. The president is not your representative.
No.
Your governor is not it's the state's legislators, it's the federal legislators that are supposed to be there to find what tunes, what bills, what policies can be fine-tuned to ensure that you have a better life. I was reading about this Democratic, she's in the House, Corteza, can't remember her full name. She used to be a waitress, a bartender. Okay. And then she's now in the House. And she was reliving the fact that she's now in the House, but she can't forget her community. Her community are the people who used to work these long hours. So part of the policy she's pushing is for an increment in a wage bill all over. She says every working person should be able to earn $13 per hour. Because she says for waitresses and bartenders, it was about $2 or $3 or $4. I can't remember, something that low. And she said what they needed to do was depend on the tips, because they're supposed to be like 10% of whatever cost you give, which is tips, which goes to the waiters. And she said in some cases where some people don't pay the tips, some people don't pay, then there's nothing really that you have to go home with. And she says so she can't forget she's now in the House, but that doesn't mean she's going to forget who really wanted her in here. And that means shaping laws that will better the lives of these people. I remember another woman, Elizabeth something, and that's for UK too. She was going back for what they call clinics. They have clinics every Tuesday, which is they go back to their communities and then they meet and then they have meetings. So what is the most important thing now? What agendas are we looking at? So she was going for a clinic, and then that's when she was stabbed by somebody. And that was how I even got to understand that clinics are things that you must do as representatives on the regular. Unfortunately, what we have come to understand with our own legislative team here is that once they move into that chamber, they are paying them money to welcome them, to give them houses, to give them, because they expect them to live there. And then occasionally come down to the constituents. And if they do come, they probably won't have time to hobnob with us. They'll probably be meeting the governors of the state or whoever, and then they're out again. So what time do you even have to have meetings with the people you're representing and saying, so what next should we do? How do we fashion a bill? And then you're hobnobbing with your team too in the Senate, because the truth is that you can't sponsor a bill without having backing.
That's what I even want to say.
You can't sponsor a bill without backing. So are you talking to Mr. A and Mr. B and say, what is your own bill? Let me see how that benefits the people I representing them, or how the people I representing, where you come from. Okay, so you're looking to have age of consent, because age of consent here in Nigeria is at 11. If you're looking at increasing that to 14, and I'm looking at the people in my village are suffering from that, I agree with you. Put that on our sponsor, and then you gather people around. But I want to believe this is what some of them do. Let me not put it that all of them don't. I want to believe this is what some of them do. But we need to see them being more proactive. If I want to blame the government over the years, honestly, the huge part of that blame goes squarely to the legislative arm of government.
Yes, but there's one thing I want to correct. That's on a lighter mood. You see, Emmy, don't be averse to Dino's songs. When everybody's so serious, sometimes we need that kind of songs. And so, even if I think he's still there now.
Of course he's there.
He sang the song 2 days ago.
He'll probably sing a song.
Why I'm even happy is that the house rules allows for some certain things. There are a lot of rules, things in that house. And most of this...
Voting has begun.
It's like the rules of court. Now, I don't blame what is going on most of these bills, that at the end of the day, they don't see the light of the day. It's like when they were trying to pass a bill in the East. I think, is it the NDDC bill?
No. NDEA or something for the East. Development, not East Development.
That bill was didn't see the light
Muzzled.
of was muzzled out because of people were saying it was the power in the north. Let me tell you, before you propose to a bill, that bill must be sponsored and you must lobby your bill. Now sometimes some of these lawmakers are not averse to, most of them are not averse to lobbying, and you see that upon proposal, upon deliberation stage, of course, people will raise eyebrow. There will be voice vote, and the voice vote is very, very important in the House. That is where the majority, carries the whole thing. It is at that point that as a legislator that you must be proficient in. Once you want to propose, you must understand the power of lobbying.
Exactly.
You must understand, but people, there is this mindset.
And the power of language. The things you will say that definitely the next person will key into what you have to say.
That is why people now come to say that they not inhibit most of these bills. But at this point, I tell you, even a man in Abia State, there was a bill that was passed some months back during the 8th Assembly. I must tell you that bill was able to see the light of the day. I think a water bill. So it was community that sponsored it. But during the voice vote, I'm sure he lobbied, and that bill saw the end of the light of the day. Even though I don't know if they have started it, the money may have been voted in, but sometimes if it is not properly checkmated, the money will go into the pocket.
Another pocket.
Now, what I will enjoy is that I think, well, in overall, I want to address one issue. The House, the rules allows for sometimes melodrama. Sometimes that is why you see Dino can stand up.
And that's why they say, of course, whatever he said in the House, you can't contest. You can't take them to court for that.
You can't take them to court because that is where the principle of ministerial responsibility comes in. Those that works in the ministry shouldn't criticize the ministry they belong to. At that point, Dino can stand up and say, but it must be in tandem. It must not be an obiter dictum distracting the House, but it must be in tandem with the activities of the House. And that is why when you start, then you now call up yourself. You have to be in order. And if you look at how Dino has been trying to manage the House, you will see that he's somebody, you look at his oratory, you look at the way he presents his bill, sometimes without paper, he stands up boldly. How many of them are bold? Most of our representatives are not bold. I have somebody that I've invited.
There's a man, and he wasn't proficient in his English. I can't remember where he's from. That house, Northern man. Was he from Kazauri? I can't remember.
But he's always standing.
Oh, but he always has something to say. The one who went to Dino's house and saw the cars and said that he doesn't know how a man can have all these cars when there are people who are...
Let's see.
I love him in
the National Assembly is a place of serious business.
It's serious
business. It's not a place
they will have to play. They will have to fight.
I'm coming.
No, they have to fight.
I'm coming.
They
have to fight.
They
have to fight.
I'm coming, sir.
No,
you don't need to use case.
That's the seriousness.
It's not use case. But it's a place where national issues are discussed. The whole world is coming.
Even in the presidency, within the presidency.
Then you will come to a place like that. Agenda has been set. Then somebody will stand up and say, my president, today what I want to do is to sing song. I want to thank my God. So what are you trying to say?
Is anything wrong? Is it an apostasy?
Maybe there's something he's supposed to maybe he will say that before I propose what I am supposed to have done, I just want to sing
you're not a member of the House. You've never been a member.
Them severally. I always follow them. And we see that sometimes this man will always bring things that are not in agenda. Sometimes Saraki will just bend, somebody will say order and order. They'll begin to laugh. So National Assembly shouldn't be a place like that. In fact, this 9th Assembly shouldn't be a place like that.
I'm coming. Okay.
And I want to correct one impression. He's dragging me to something. There is a man from his place. There is a man from his constituency.
No, you don't have the mic yet.
You don't have the mic yet. There is a man from his constituency whom he supported. He voted him. His name is Patrick Obaibo. That man read all the dictionary. Nobody killed him. Let me finish.
Edo State.
He's from your side.
Did you support him?
Yes.
No, but did you support him?
I'm not from his constituency.
No, but he's from
Obayegbo was in the House of
and you listened to him.
Obayegbo,
he listened to him.
Who was the president?
I'm coming.
Then?
What Obayegbo? I'm coming.
What
Obayegbo was doing there was to use this Greek English, big English. He will begin to communicate Latin and all that. He was using Latin and all that, but he wasn't doing what Dino was doing. His own was just use big English.
Okay, calm down. Both of you calm down.
There's something I wanted to say. And the 6th Assembly, this 6th or 7th, something happened then when some group of persons in Lagos discovered that Nigerians were actually facing accommodation problem and all that, and that thing has led so many youth, so many who are outside and all that, and they decided to come up with an idea, and that idea was to kick against advance rent in Nigeria, and they were able to lobby a senator from Lagos, and that bill was sponsored in the House as a private member bill. These persons have done their homework, and even the senator has spoken to some persons. But do you know what happened? Majority of the senators kick against that bill, even in the first reading. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they are landlords. Mm-hmm. If truly we have people who represent our interests, people whom we are sent there to discuss issues that affect us, they will have seen the need. Because that will have taken many Nigerians off the street. If you are paying, for example, 10,000 naira as your house rent, if you are able to gather 10,000, you go to a landlord, please, this is my 10,000, you will have accommodation, you have a place to lay your head. You will no longer be sleeping under bridge or room okoro run about and all that. But what they did was to stop it. But these are the things we are looking at. People who will have the people in their mind. People who will see the pains and the plight of the people, and we want to discuss it at the National Assembly. Right. I ensure that there are laws that would have made, to caution this effect.
All right, then, thank you. Then, Emmy, before Emmanuel, Emmy. Chimene.
As long as I'm concerned, I wouldn't want to bite the activities of the 8th National Assembly, neither the 7th National Assembly. Within the citadel of knowledge that have been dished out, I'm still a dimple lunatic. But I want to say that as spectators, they have done well. Now, if you look at the activities of Dino without bias, assuming I'm not conceding, but following the activities of Dino prudently, one will elogize him. It was through him we discovered that there were leakages under this government. And it was through him we discovered that monies were siphoned. And it was as a result of...
How many of them were proven?
Can you allow me? If you need
it, interjected when I was talking.
Okay.
Now, what I'm saying is that whoever that is, I know that what we're saying here, whoever that is angry with Dino, Kogi State is not far. You can go there. And tell him that you don't want to see him in the house.
Right,
he was voted for.
It's
right.
The 9th
all right. Thank you very much. Emmanuel Nduke.
Well, when you talk about Patrick or Biboners or whatever's activities there, now when it comes out at a certain stage, he will relapse into the use of Latin.
Yes.
It forms a distraction to some within that particular chamber. That use of Latin, because he will be on his own. If you want to have been able to understand, you wouldn't know what he's saying.
Even on channel.
The same thing. Those who love music will love those songs. So for me,
I'm his fan.
Those ones are not the issue. The issue is the interest, and there will always be diverse interests. Like you are saying about this no rent for accommodation. If it has sold through, you will see a lot of people would have, in fact, been beneficiaries. But some, also a lot, will abuse it. You have so much money, and you will even be very stingy to bring out to pay your landlords.
Well,
so the truth is that diverse interest will always surface, but let them do the right thing.
Real quickly, voting has commenced. Voting has commenced, and the senators have been called one after the other. They get to go to a cubicle where they can secretly choose who they want and come and drop off their vote. Eventually, the numbers will be collated. Unfortunately, I don't think that will happen while we're still on air, because we just have.
And before I forget,
we just have 20 minutes before we leave.
Before I forget, what has killed most of the private bills proposed in the House is class action or public policy. Most times you could raise a bill. We have seen what happened in the North, where the age marriage thing came up. People proposed it in the North. And we saw that there was a lot of antagonism. The reason is that the public will look at it. It's like where an AG of a state is withdrawing a nolly prosecai. It is the duty of the public to say, look, this nolly was withdrawn in bad faith, or he entered it in bad faith or good faith. They can raise an action. And that is what has affected both the 6th, 7th, 9th, 8th Assembly. Part of it. Because we have seen where people will write a petition. Even community could come up to say, look, what our member
and because again, I believe the people who do this without having full backing of the people they represent.
Yes. So,
and they just come there and decide that I represent this constituency and this is their
people
position.
Are not properly consulted.
They don't know. You've not gone back to meet them and said, this is what they're saying. What do you think? Do you agree? Should we move? And because, like we said earlier, they do have proper town hall meetings. They don't have that on the regular. So sometimes, most of the time, all we hear about proposal of bills is when we watch the news.
Yes.
And then we hear that, oh, this is happening. None of them usually have that time to come and say, we have been discussing this and this bill is coming up. What is your position on it as people I represent? How would you want me to vote as regards that? We don't do that. And then they, on their own, with their own selfish choices or whatever they feel about the bill or whatever information they believe is best for the people, take the decisions that take over time, which is very unfortunate.
But,
and then, when we even tried to see a period where we said, okay, you did not represent us well, even though some people say it had political backings, and that was in Kogi State when they said, let's see if we can even do a recall.
Yeah.
It didn't sail. It didn't go nowhere. So, and for me, I just wanted to see how far it could go. So at least the senators or the representatives will sit up and say, it can get to a point where my people will say, come back, and it's over.
Yeah,
like the lady in UK too again, who was caught driving and on the phone. She had to go back again to her constituency and have, if the constituents want that kind of person to represent her. And they said, no, they don't.
I don't belong to that area. If he's here, they'll well him.
So what? He's driving and he's talking ahead. Did he kill somebody?
Sometimes.
Go, our action senator.
I tell you.
It is true there are diverse interests in the society. That is why Thomas Hobbes say every social being is selfish. If I'm to agree with him that yes, we are all selfish, and this selfishness will be made manifest in our interests. So we elected these persons there to harmonize all these interests and see how they can fashion or formulate a law that will guide all these interests towards development. So if these persons are not doing so, that is part of the reason we are underdeveloped. It's part of the reason there is high level of stealing in public offices. That is the reason our educational system is copy and paste. That is the reason our court system has become a larceny. The highest bidder will carry the day. But if today we now have people who understand these things, that people have their interests, there are certain public demands that are inimical to development. If you discover what do? You bring out the best that will guide the society towards the goal that we've set.
See, when you are talking about they are elected to harmonize that interest that will be for the generality of people.
Yes.
I want to let you know that the harmonization will also follow different or diverse fashions.
That is why they are members. They are 109 and 360.
So it still behooves on all of them to sit down and now look at this is fashion B, because all of them are attempts at harmonizing the differences.
Yes.
But in the end, the standard they set for themselves, allowed by their rules, they'll look at it, the one that tends to be more on one side on the aggregate, they will take it.
That is why they vote.
You may still look at it, for instance, and say that particular position is not articulate, but that's the accommodation of the assemblage of diversities. That is it. And that is always when we look at these opinions, only make room for the allowance or acceptance of other people's opinion, because you cannot be alone in the world.
Yes, that is why if issues are raised at the floor of the house, people will deliberate on it. People will make contributions. So at the end of the day, if the thing is so severe or the argument is so heated, they will allow room for voting. If you are in support of this, yea, have it, at the nay. That is why David Mark will always say the nay, have it the other time. So that is what we are saying. If these people understand the problem from the local community, from their constituencies and senatorial districts, then we come up with this interest.
No, you see what you understand what I said. See. What if, for instance, it's now gone into near year?
Yes.
And then the wrong one receives a year.
Yes.
The wrong one.
The wrong one might receive even the year.
Will you praise it?
Based on the interest of the
Gentlemen.
But in the end, it also favors
I think
is it for the general good or not?
And there is
that is why we now look at it.
There is a conflict of thought.
What's
the
that?
reason is that I think Chief has made it clear. See, even at the deliberation stage, there is a committee stage before it goes to final.
Whatever committee,
please allow me.
The House can notify.
Allow me. You're not the moderator. Now it goes down. You've not been elected before.
But
Now,
I know what
It's
happened
okay.
there.
Let him
I
just
know what
finish.
is happening there.
You know what is happening. You would have been there this
I
morning.
will be there very 2023. I will
So
be there.
it's
So for now, you're in the studio. Calm down. Let him finish.
so these things goes down from deliberation stage to committee stage. At committee stage, the bill can be quashed. So and that is why you see the burden is not what we are looking at. You may have a very big plasma and be watching, just as one of my colleagues is claiming here. And somebody with 22-inch can even be looking at it from a small angle and you can't get what is going on. There is an internal wrangling. Even after much, they will go and form a caucus. And from that caucus, that is where the interest comes in. Now the executive interest will come in. It's not easy for them. That is why you see rubber stamp legislation.
I've understood.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me say something. I see.
Yeah.
Oh God! You know, it's in your head. You're looking for the
I'm
word.
looking for the
I see the legislative house as it's like patterns of waves. Everybody's a pattern of waves.
Just your interest.
It's a pattern of waves. So if it clashes and it links, then we are able to pull our resources together. Because it's pattern and waves. That is why that is the arena you find lobbies.
Simple.
That is where the lobbies.
That is why you have a senator, a House of Rep needs to have a team of lobbies.
Yes.
Those lobbies are the ones who are talking
Those
to
are
that
the
one and
only
talking
way
to
your
that one and
views can
talking to
stay
that
through,
one.
yes.
So in the evenings or whenever it is, they all
They
come
sit
back
down.
again. They sit down and they discuss. They say, you know, on this person's team, this is how the pattern is going. That person's team. So you also know how to vest
to
your
work it out.
interest and
Yes.
move together. It is never really one man's island. When
There
you
is a
say,
campaign.
I have.
Yes, you have to campaign.
That's what I'm saying. Because see, if you believe that you will do it alone,
Nah.
you suffer heart attack there and come back and die.
No.
do it
So you really, it goes down to how good your lobbying is. How best you work with
Simple.
it. And because we have considered lobbying here to how much money you are able to give, which is not what it ought to be. Lobbying is that how am I able to convince you that you can come along
Internal
with my
campaign.
Exactly. And I will back you up when yours comes next, or how this in its interest will benefit your people too. So you just need to append your signature here as someone who desires the good of his people. But no, here in Nigeria is how many millions are you bringing from
Like, what is going on now?
Even
And-
at the committee stage that we are talking about, whatever decision you may come up with, you must report to the committee of the whole. The committee of the whole encompasses the whole house. They will deliberate whatever decision you've reached.
No, we agree.
If
But
they
that's why we're
accept-
saying
if
lobbying.
they accept it.
No, but that's
Maybe
why we're
it's
saying
not
any.
understood.
Yes,
That's why
lobbying
we're
is part
saying
of it.
no. That's
Yes.
why we're saying lobbying is key.
Yes.
Because even when you collapse to a committee of the whole, your game is already set.
The lobby continue.
Yes,
where the
your game,
decision-
your game is
that's
already
where the
set.
decision
Lobby
has been
continue. So if they against, you know, there are people who are always against certain bills. They will also lobby.
But of course, yes, of course.
Why there are those who are in support,
Of
they will also
course.
lobby.
The highest bidder
So what,
prevails.
that is why I say at the committee stage, whatever decision that is reached, you report your decision to the committee of the whole. So the lobbies continue on both sides. So at the end of the day, they will look at those decisions. Those who feel that we are in support of this, we vote in support of it. And those
I'd like
against,
to
we
see.
vote
Well, I'll
against
tell
it.
you something.
That
I'll
is
tell you
why-
something
that
real
is how it
quickly.
is done.
I like to see a very robust ninth assembly, far more robust than the 8th, the 7th, the 6th, the 5th. I like to see a ninth assembly that truly understands that they are there to represent the people.
Yes.
The one that comes home almost every week. I'd like to see them come home. After all, I mean, all the amount of millions they get, they can afford to fly in and fly out every week. I'd like to see them talk to their people more. I'd like to see them more accessible. I'd like them to be the ones who are asking, what do you want
What
me
do
to
you
do?
want to?
I would like to see that kind of
nice
nice assembly. I would like to see somebody keep proposing and let it keep getting knocked out, but that they keep doing the effort to see them still talking to people and trying to make sure that a particular bill they think will better the lot of Nigerians sees the light of day, and that not when it's knocked off, well, you know, I tried and that's it.
They are more in number than us.
Then it's over. No, you keep working on that thing till you get it. I would like to see that for the ninth assembly. I've heard from everybody here, and you don't sound too excited about what you see, especially when you look at the TV. I'm seeing very flamboyant, people.
Yes.
I hope that when it comes to doing the work, all this flamboyancy
Some of
would.
the agbada.
They will not be coming. Some will be in Abuja when national issues are being discussed. Some will be in London when
What is
national
being
issues are being
displayed
discussed.
here has been appended some few months.
Sad.
And as I speak to you, there is nothing that can thwart it. Because what we are running is oligarchy system of government, where the executive power moves in. They have decided who is going to be the speaker, who is going to be the Senate president.
I've said it already. Yeah. This thing is too. There's too much wealth in it.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, it's normal. By the time you have too much wealth, you're just so many things you don't have to bother yourself
finance,
for.
yeah, so
And you're thinking, why should I stress myself? But when we remove all the money that's associated with being a legislator, and then all we're after is how best you can provide bills and pursue it, we'll begin to, remove the chaff from the grain.
wheat from the tar.
You see, a litany of hopes you've expressed here, Annie. It will start from what the result of this. Because I tell you, if anybody that comes out becomes automatically somebody, if as a rock coughs, he sneezes himself, then nothing will come out fruitful from it.
But
it is even better
Emmanuel,
there's a little element of opposition.
But Emmanuel, both candidates are people who are Buharists.
No, there is an interest. The Buhari has an
Both
interest.
candidates.
There's an interest.
Anybody call those things. Both candidates are Buharists. And in this case, hold on. In this case, I think it's going to be even slightly difficult to see a deputy who is going to come up from the PDP. The entire house of the APC is there.
They are all there.
The entire house of the APC is there. Unlike Saraki's case, when about 16 only were in there.
Saraki was something of
exactly.
It was
so they were able to get the PDP people there. You have the entire APC there. And that an APC will sit down there and then decide that, yes, we don't want to take the deputy. We want to give it to a PDP.
You never can tell. We have seen politics creep into even churches. Now they may have lobbied. The PDP may have. See, what they are doing here is better. Remember the Ndume and the Lawal have gone to the house of PDPs. Some of them have visited states for compromise. At this point, they may have struck a bargain. And the bargain is that, please, this is what we want. Money has exchanged hands.
So
at this point.
So hold on. That is as far Lawan is concerned.
Yes.
Lawan was lobbying his Lawan business.
Lawan for Lawan.
Lawan was lobbying his Lawan business. Lawan is not a tag team. Lawan did lobbied for Lawan. Ndume lobbied for Ndume.
And I can tell you, as of fact,
yes,
the APC house, there is no unification in APC house.
That is now.
I hope you know that for deputy now, amongst the APC, there's no contest.
There's no contest.
It's Omar Agege.
They all step down.
They all step down. It's only Omar Agege.
What?
No, you see, what I don't agree now, you see Ndume, it was a Buharist in the 8th Assembly. But you see this 2019, he might have changed the camp.
Okay, you see Lawan, he was a Buhari.
No,
what makes you think now? Yes,
no.
but what makes you think that by the time he gets what he wanted?
He might not change.
He might change. He might decide that, look.
No, there's sense in what you are saying. But until we see that one.
Exactly,
but
that's what I'm saying.
Ndume for now, with all the rough handlings, I'm not sure he's a
Even Ndume never fought Buhari's fight. He never fought Buhari's fight in the 8th Assembly. What led to his suspension was the interest of the Senate. He saw a newspaper publication against Dino, and he raised the attention of the House to the publication that this thing is a dent on the National Assembly. Let us see how we can look into it, because Dino is one of the strikers